Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Take Out the Stigma of Grief Week. We are in day 2 of our grief sessions, and this afternoon we're going to be talking about our pets and what happens when Fido dies, helping families cope with the loss of a pet. My name is Nicole Fulmer, and I am the Director of Community Engagement here at Delaware Hospice. And today I am welcomed with Leslie Eames, who is one of our bereavement counselors at Delaware Hospice. Welcome, Leslie, and thank you so much for joining us today. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself, maybe how long you've been with Delaware Hospice, how long you've been a counselor, and perhaps what you enjoy most about your job?
I've been a counselor pretty much my entire professional life, and I have been working specifically in the field of hospice for the last 20 years, and with Delaware Hospice, a little over 9 years. In my previous hospice position, it was a little bit more diverse, where I did spiritual care, volunteers, and bereavement. And I'm happy to be at Delaware Hospice, where my role now is specifically bereavement, which is my area of interest and my area of care. Previously, I worked in different type of clinical psychology and other counseling fields, but I've always been drawn to this particular field. On a personal level, my brother is a funeral director, so I do come from a family of funeral directors, never wanting to go into that particular field, but in a way, I'm still there. When my niece and nephew were quite young, they always said, I took care of people before they died, and daddy took care of them after they died. So I kind of like that little analogy when they were young.
I
So
like that.
that's, my type of background. So it's a little bit different, actually, having a brother who's also in a indirect field, but he's a great resource and he's someone who gets my field and I get his field.
Oh, definitely. And now, just out of curiosity, is he local? Is he in the
No,
area
no,
as well?
he's not. He's up in Chester County on the
Okay.
borderline of Lancaster County, very small town, Honeybrook. But he actually did one of his first internships with the Muley Funeral Home here in Wilmington.
Yes, very
So I know
familiar
the
with
Muley
that.
quite well from over 25 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for joining us today. And I know when I had reached out to your team and had given some of the topics, this was one that you said immediately that you wanted to be part of. So I take it you are an animal lover.
I am an animal lover. I am a very pet lover. I grew up in a family of always having dogs, always having more than one cat. I spent a lot of time growing up in a very farm area where we had the outdoor animals as well as the indoor animals. And most recently, after 14 years, I had to put down my very beloved cat just this past summer. It was last July, so it's only been a year. I have not adopted yet. I have looked and thought about it. And again, it's a big step after that. And
Yeah.
there's a huge grieving process, huge grieving process. I knew my cat was not eating well. And again, 13, 14 years that I had him since a baby. And then he was diagnosed with colon cancer. I, as a pet mother, I could not make that decision that day as far as that. So I tell my family and friends I brought him home for a week and a half on kitty hospice, where he had pain medications until and I knew it was best for him, made that decision approximately about a week and a half later.
And what was your cat's name?
My cat's name was Donnie.
Donnie. Okay.
And actually, a
Thank you for
little like
sharing that.
background, because he looked exactly like a cat I had previously that was named after George Harrison. And so then when I got another gray cat with a little bit of Russian blue in him that looked exactly like my previous cat, George, I named the new cat after George's son, which is Donnie Harrison.
Got it. Yeah, at
Yep.
first the first Donnie that came into my mind was Donny Osmond.
Nope, nope, no. My cat was named after George Harrison's son.
I
Spelled a little
love it.
differently. Is spelled differently.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that with us. Our animals are so very, very important to us, and we have six in my house, and now my son for Christmas wants another. So we'll see how that goes. But they are part of the family. So we'll begin. This is just a picture that as I was doing research and pulling up some slides, one that just really touched me, probably because of my love for dogs and the beach. And just this best friends live forever in the memories we keep. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk through 7 helpful tips today for coping when you have a pet that has died. And we'll go through these one by one. And if anybody on the phone has questions or something strikes you, you want to share, please feel free, because we always like these to be more of a conversation and engage people in what we're talking about. So here are the 7 things, and we're going to go into them in detail on the next few slides. So the first 2. Set aside time to grieve and release your emotions. And number 2, reflecting on the life you've shared. Now, Leslie, you said, about this with setting aside time to grieve. You spoke so beautifully about, when your cat died, and you are not yet ready. And I think that's important for people to really acknowledge that, to give yourself some time. Do you want to comment on either that or go ahead.
He wasn't suffering so much at that point, and the vet who I had a lovely, lovely vet. I did spoil my cat rotten because he went to a cat only type hospital where there was no dogs allowed there. It was a completely cat type place. They always said bark free environment. So my vets were like the top experts on cats.
Great.
And she gave me the signs that we sometimes even know with our actual hospice patients on what I would see when it was time. She did not necessarily say the day that, well, there was a few vet visits before that because he had to do a radiology appointment with a cat radiologist, and then, many other appointments until the final diagnosis of colon cancer, which I did not even know cats could get, but he
Me
did.
neither.
And when he was finally diagnosed, my vet said, no, you could still take him home and you have this type of medication to give to him orally for any discomfort and pain. And then she was very clear and explicit and sent me articles online. And she said, this is what you will see. And when you're ready, we're here. And I knew some of the signs that were happening and called late on a Tuesday night. I think it was as late as 8 o'clock, and booked the appointment for the next day. So I wasn't, well, I was ready, but I knew I had a little bit of a cushion of another week and a half. She thought maybe it would be 3 weeks, but we
Mhm.
never know. We never know with our loved ones. We don't know with our pets. It could have been 3, it could have been 4. For Donnie, it was a week and a half.
I'm so glad you had that time, together and to prepare. And, it's like with our loved ones, having that time to say what we need to say is so important. And then afterward, to have that time to acknowledge those feelings and, being kind to yourself. I think a lot of people that I talk to, they think they can hurry up and get through the journey, and you can't go around it. You have to go through it.
The other story I did want to share, and whether it's that time now or not, but I'm just thinking of it as far as the time afterwards, because he was quite a kind of king of the house and spoiled. He had 2 places that he always slept in: my queen size bed, and it was either next to my face or down at my feet. And I will be honest, and I know I'm not going crazy, but I don't know how many times I would wake up in the middle of the night and I could still see him in one of those 2 spots.
I believe it.
It happened for months.
Wow. Very comforting, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that time of period where you're waking up but not exactly quite
Hmm.
awake, or that time period where you're going to sleep before you get into your deep sleep, as far as your REMs and that type of thing, where you just kind of have seen him there so much that you just kind of thought he was still there.
It's a special like twilight kind of
Yeah,
period.
exactly. Exactly.
It's like where dreams and realities meet. I love that. Now, I
Exactly.
know a lot of the bereavement counselors, such as yourself, recommend to people to do something like journal after a loved one dies and after a pet dies. Is that something that you have done or that you encourage other people to do? Perhaps write a letter to your animal, your pet?
Actually, to be honest, Nicole, I've never really kind of thought of that. I use that technique so often, and I have so many different handouts as far as journal prompts. Delaware Hospice has this lovely booklet that's kind of set up like a journal that we give to so many of our bereaved clients. But honestly, I never did that. I didn't think of that for myself. I did not. But it's an excellent
Kate
idea.
just
I
wrote,
didn't think of it.
taken right from our bereavement counselors. Imagine that. Kate actually just put in the chat, I could hear my dog for a long time after he had passed. It's very, very true. And usually when people say that, they say it does bring them a great sense of comfort. So on this next slide, another two ways for coping. It's important. You hear a lot about self-care, and I think particularly for women, I'll say that that's usually not something that we're good at. We usually take care of others. It seems to be our way. And it's so important that we do get enough sleep, that we eat and we drink water, that we stay active. And if at all possible, to try to choose something that you enjoy, something that could be calming, whether that is, going for a walk, just sitting on a bench, perhaps it's knitting, crocheting, maybe fishing, but just some time to have that quiet space. I know sometimes it's hard and some people keep themselves very, very active, so they don't need to go into that quiet space. But I find when I talk to people about it, that they say that they enjoy that time and that it really does help them through the process. Was there anything that you had done, Leslie, that you found to help you?
Well, I did take some personal time and a little vacation time. I just needed just some time just to kind of regroup, especially after, especially being in my job as a bereavement counselor.
Right.
I just needed some time. My supervisor knew that it was coming, and then I did decide, and I took 2 personal days and also 2 vacation days. So um, cried for a couple of days, and there was nothing. I just needed a break from
Hmm.
people in my job. I also have siblings who are also pet lovers, and my brother and his wife have always had 2 cats. They always believe that a cat always needs another cat in the house to be like friends or partners with. And so I talked to my brother, and
Right.
he helped me and guided me as far as when the time was right too. So I had good support from family who got me. And believe it or not,
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
I had sympathy cards come from people, which I
Oh,
actually never
sure.
I
There's
actually never
some,
do that. Yep. I send a sympathy card when someone loses a pet.
oh, I hope that's everybody can see. If anyone can hear me, can you put something in the chat? Okay, so you can see and hear. Okay. I'm so sorry, Leslie. I wasn't able to capture the end of that. My internet, I got a sign that it said it was unstable. I heard you talking about your brother, how he was there for you.
And also my family and very close friends sent me sympathy cards. And that
Yes.
is now something I do because I had lost pets before, but I'm not sure what it was about this particular cat. I think it was just different. It was a different relationship, different cat, different life. It was a different point in my life for whatever reason that he came into my life at that time. But, now I always do that. I shared with you, Nicole, that I had a client whose husband died on our Delaware hospice program, and he was blind. He was blind since a child. And she, of course, after he died, his service animal, which was a beautiful, beautiful, um, beautiful dog. I'm not sure of the exact breed, but a beautiful service dog. And then she needed to put down his service dog 2 years after her husband died. And she felt it was like losing her husband all over again because of that close relationship of a blind man with a service dog for over 16 years. And
Wow.
when she told me, she called me actually that day. I immediately the next day sent her a card, and this will be in your slides later. It's very, very lovely poem that I use a lot of time called The Rainbow Bridge. And I knew how important sympathy cards was to me when I lost a pet, and it was also to her. But
Most
that's
definitely.
even a deeper, deeper type of loss, as far as a service animal for your
Yes.
blind deceased husband. Oh, so it was hard. It was very hard for her.
And that reminds me, like when I think back to like 9/11, the dogs that were out there
Yeah,
and looking for people, the
yeah,
search and rescue dogs, and to hear the stories about when one of them passes, or um, a police officer who has a service dog that dies in the line of duty, and it sometimes, I think it hits us even harder, um, when we see that. But thank you for sharing. Now, did you have other animals when you had Donnie, or was he your only one?
he was my only one at that time. Yes,
Okay.
I work a lot of hours. I live alone. So, cats work best for me, because it's kind of the minimum amount of care and that type of thing. So yeah, he was my only one.
And the reason I asked, I just wanted to make sure, because this next tip, if you will, is about maintaining routines if you have other animals. And, animals do grieve too. I'm a firm believer in that. And in a way, like children, they need structure and they thrive on routine. I know at 5 o'clock, our cat is downstairs in the kitchen meowing. And if that food's not there, be prepared. That cat is going to jump up on you. And from what I was reading, that dogs will continually search for their pack member. Cats may want to spend time alone or hide. Horses, I found this interesting that they will run the fence line and they will, I want to say, is it whinny? Is that the correct term? Kate, you probably know this. You can shake your head. You don't know? Kate's a wealth of trivia knowledge too. But they make that noise, and it's almost as if they're calling out for that other horse, for their mate. And just trying to maintain any of those routines is important for them, to bring like a sense of calm. And I found that to be very interesting.
And Nicole, that's a great point when I'm thinking back as far as the lady I was telling you about who had to put down her husband's service dog. She actually had two other cats, and they just were searching
Mm.
for the dog's name was Juniper, and I actually met him, but the cats were searching for many weeks on where the dog was.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Animals are just truly unbelievable. So these next two, memorializing the memory of your pet, so important, and then seeking support. And in terms of this last one, it sounds like, Leslie, for you, you had a very good support network. You had a manager who understood, and, allows you that time to take off. And it is so important, just that you have that. And, and then your brother, it's so important when you can just open up and be yourself and to share, um, and memorializing the memory of your pet. Um, I know one thing we did, when my late husband's dog needed to be put to sleep. No one could do it, and I somehow got elected. And I took Remy to McDonald's and I bought him a quarter pounder and went to the vet. And there's a beautiful grassy area out there, and let him off the leash and enjoy that quarter pounder. And I'll never forget that they were having a special that day, and we got a free Coca-Cola glass. And when I went inside, and it was beautiful, they had a beautiful blanket that I sat down on and held Remy. And they took some of his hair, they cut a little bit of his hair and put it in a little Ziploc bag. And we took off his collar and we placed that in this Coca-Cola glass. And then they did a paw print with some blue paint and let that dry. And it was beautiful. And it was just that very, I'm going to tear up, that small gesture, but it's in our China hutch, that Coca-Cola glass with the paw print, the imprint rolled up, and, the collar and that tuft of hair. And it was a way that helped the kids. It helped me, even though this wasn't my dog, but to be with Remy and the vet at that particular moment when he did pass on, when he died. It was beautiful. And, and I think it's important that everybody can choose what they want, whatever, if it's a small service, if it is a memory box, do what's important, because grief is unique, as unique as we all are.
Along those lines, Nicole, I didn't know that at the time, but my particular vet at the cat hospital, I live actually in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, so it was a cat hospital in Media, Pennsylvania. Wonderful, wonderful vets. But 2 weeks later, I got a small, and I should have had it here for our session, but I had a small original artwork of flowers, and it was all painted. And then his paw prints were part of that, and it's lovely.
That sounds beautiful.
It was, and it
Wow.
was original. You could feel that
Yeah.
someone actually had painted this, and then his paw prints. I knew nothing that was coming. And the other thing that our vet did that was so nice, I did have the support of a best friend there that day. So I was not like you alone, but I did have someone there. And they gave us a little kind of buzzer thing. So it could just be me and him and the cat. And then they said, just press the buzzer when you're ready for us to come back in.
Well,
And I
isn't
thought that
that
was
nice?
nice. I just thought that was, they let us have our
Wow.
time, no rush, no rush
Yeah.
at all. They said it will be soon, and just press this little buzzer and then the vet will come back in.
Wow. That gives me the chills.
That was what our
That's
vet did.
beautiful.
Yeah,
It's those little touches that, that you remember, and that's so sweet. And that's what sets that veterinarian apart from so many others.
it was a very expensive vet, but at that point, I didn't care about the
Yeah.
money.
They're your family.
Yeah, exactly. That unconditional love, and
Yep.
it was my baby. So, but they were a little bit pricey.
Kate actually just put in the chat about having ornaments made with their image, um, and even socks. I did not know about that. That's pretty cool. Wow. Oh, my kids would love that. They are sock thieves. Thank goodness I said this in the last session. We were talking about Alzheimer's and helping to connect with your loved one that may have dementia or Alzheimer's, and you're grieving the person that they once were. And one of the things we were saying, to help engage them, is have them do something that they may have done years earlier, like fold napkins or match socks. And I'm like, in my family's case, there's never a match, but thank goodness it's in now for the kids to like not match. So, well, those were some of the helpful steps for coping. And again, thank you for sharing, your story, Leslie, and Kate, for the wonderful ideas that you presented. And moving on to this next slide, I know there's a lot of words here, but this is the Rainbow Bridge, this poem, Leslie, that you were talking about. And when I wanted to make sure that I had this, I had all the words on this page. And um, the gentleman who came up with this poem was actually a grief counselor in Oregon, I found. And it is such a beautiful story. Um, do you want to summarize it, Leslie? I hate to read the whole thing, but
Well, basically, if anyone would go online, there's a lot of different versions of it. There's versions just for dogs, there's versions for cats, there's versions for birds and horses. So they've taken this original version and then have kind of adapted. And some of them have just some lovely graphics with, but basically it is a little bit about where our pets go, and where our pets go, they're happy all day. They have they're all healthy again. They can run in the grass and they play with their other dog friends or their other cat friends, and they have plenty of food. And it's just kind of, heaven for pets. And then what happens when one of us die, who were the parent? Sorry, they come running to greet us. And we're reunited
mhm.
with our, because they see someone else coming over on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge, and that someone else is their previous parent. Going back again to my client who had the service dog, and she said when Juniper passed, she knew her husband was on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge greeting his dog.
I love it. It's so comforting and such a beautiful story, a beautiful poem. And when I was pulling this up, I just found some of these other photos. I know, Leslie, you did share this one in the middle, which I love, showing the different dogs. And the one on the left, it just struck me. I don't know if it's because of the type of dog or what, but just the eyes. It's beautiful. And that rainbow bridge, just a beautiful, beautiful picture.
And I'll be honest, I did send my client the one in the middle, and now I remember why, because one of those dogs was a golden retriever, and now that was the dog that was the service dog that she put down. So I deliberately sent that one in the middle because it looked like her dog and her husband's dog, because Juniper was a golden retriever.
I love that name, Juniper. What a great name for a dog. Well, we are just about at time, and just want to take these last few minutes just to let you all know about the other sessions that we have this week. We're about halfway through our sessions for Take Out the Stigma of Grief Week. At 4 o'clock today, we have a session entitled Surviving After a Sudden Loss, Finding Hope and Healing. And a woman from Wing Mom, which I'll talk about in a moment, she's going to be sharing her story of her fiance who suddenly died in the line of duty as a fireman, and how she moved on and is living a legacy with him in mind. And then tomorrow we have a full day. If I can get the slide to cooperate, there we go. Tomorrow we'll be talking about anticipatory grief and preparing for the death of a loved one. And then moving on to some things, what I wish I knew before my loved one died. And then 10 ways to remember loved ones coming into the holidays. There's some neat ways that we can remember and start new traditions to remember them and honor our loved ones. And then moving on to a different type of grief, the grief associated with a divorce. And we are going to have a lawyer on the call who's going to kind of walk through some things to keep in mind if you're going through a divorce or have a friend going through. And then a woman who found a new life after her divorce and is helping others through this wonderful organization she started, helping single moms, which is just an incredible story. So if you have time on tomorrow afternoon to join. And then Thursday, we'll finish up the week with a Thanksgiving blessing at noon. And I assure you, it will be short, but it's just to recognize this is a different Thanksgiving. There's a lot of seats at the table that'll be empty this year, whether someone has passed away or we're quarantining or someone might be in the hospital. So again, just a little bit different Thanksgiving, but we wanted to just take the time and recognize what's going on and serve as a reminder for really giving thanks and gratitude for so many things. Now, in addition to the grief sessions that Delaware Hospice is putting on this week, there's also Take Out the Stigma of Grief Week with regards to takeout food. So these are some of the restaurants and organizations that are donating a portion of their proceeds to Delaware Hospice. There's a number of them there you may be familiar with. I'm very excited. Put the Cute in Charcuterie. I hope I'm pronouncing that word correctly. I decided to splurge for Thanksgiving and get a small tray for our family. So I'm excited about that. And then eat some good food and give back to Delaware Hospice. Every single call or session, I think I've given nod to Frank's Liquors because they're donating $20 for every wine advent calendar. So I think that's such a great idea. So we want to thank all of them. And given this time of year, I can't forget to mention Festival of Trees, which is our annual event, a huge fundraiser for Delaware Hospice. And if you've attended in the past, you'll remember magnificently decorated trees and wreaths. This year, of course, it is a little bit different. On Saturday, we put a video out called Festival at Home that highlighted a lot of the trees that are up in our offices. And many of those are sponsored. I think actually all of them are sponsored. Some are donated and others can be purchased. You can also go online at festivalofTrees.org to purchase remembrance ornaments and get a link to our marketplace Etsy shop. If you've attended in the past, you probably spent some time buying baked goods and some holiday decor. So you can go online and at least buy some holiday decorations. Unfortunately, no food, but we'll have more next year, I'm sure. So in closing, just want to remind everyone that Delaware Hospice is here for you, for the community. We're more than just hospice. We also have this tremendous bereavement team, and very fortunate Leslie was here to share with us today. We have bereavement programs for adults and for children. We're doing a lot of virtual sessions right now because of COVID. We spoke about a little bit about hospice care. We also have palliative care and our transitions program, which provides community resources to people in need that may not be ready or may not need either palliative or hospice care yet. So those are just some of the other programs. We have a program for anyone and everyone. And again, we're just a phone call or a click away. A special thanks to Wing Mom. I mentioned that we will have the owner of Wing Mom on a call with us this afternoon. They literally are a village of moms supporting other moms and families and seniors. They do everything from picking a child up at school or a loved one at the airport to watching maybe a grandparent so you can get some grocery shopping done or doing a load of laundry for you. They literally are there to help you with whatever you need. And they have been really, truly behind this, the brainchild of Take Out the Stigma of Grief Week. Also, Ignite Your Light and Sherm's Catering have been sponsors of this program. And then I always like to mention our corporate sponsors because Delaware Hospice is a nonprofit, truly relies on our volunteers and our community to put on a lot of our programs and services. So that is it for today. We look at that. We are like right at time. Leslie, I want to thank you again for joining us. This has been wonderful to hear your story, hear Donnie's story, and what a beautiful, beautiful tribute to him. Thank you, everyone. Please be safe and social distance, wash your hands, wear your mask, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you so much, everyone.